considered to be the deadliest war for journalists in recent history. According to Reporters Without Borders, since October 7th, more than 100 journalists have lost their lives, mostly in the Gaza Strip, with around 20 killed in the line of duty.
Allahu Akbar.
Today, the images coming out of the besieged enclave are mostly from Palestinian journalists or ordinary citizens. Amid security threats, office destruction, power and internet outages, food shortages, lack of clean water, the daily life of Gazan journalists has become a true nightmare. Like many other journalists, France 24's Maha Abulkas lost her home to Israeli bombings.
I was hurt above my eye, but thankfully, it was only minor. However, the psychological impact is huge.
Wissam Yassin has been covering the war on a daily basis for the American channel Al Hurra. Constrained to take refuge in Rafah, home to nearly 1.4 million Palestinians, she now operates in front of the Kuwaiti hospital, where journalists can access electricity. These tents, set up alongside those of displaced Gazans, have become their workplace. For Wissam, covering the war in Gaza is not just a job, it's her duty.
Every day, I say goodbye to my children, but they don't realize it. Despite my bulletproof vest, the heat and fatigue from hours of work and the waiting, the moment I step in front of the camera to tell the story of a child, or the suffering of someone who's lost their child or home, or when I report the truth about what's happening to people, that's when I feel like my mission is accomplished.
For the same reasons, Wael Dahdouh continued reporting despite the personal tragedies he endured. The Al Jazeera journalist lost his wife, 2 children, and a grandson to a strike in late October. He was injured by another Israeli strike that killed his cameraman in December.
Our bureau chief.
And a few weeks later, his 27-year-old son, also a journalist, was killed by an Israeli drone, along with other colleagues. Following each loss, Dahdouh continued his work and went back on air, making him an emblematic figure in the Arab world and beyond.
They paid with their lives for me to continue working. After they were killed in this manner, I consider it shameful to stand aside and to give up or to stop covering. On the contrary, I must continue because of their sacrifice.
Dahdouh eventually left Gaza to seek medical treatment in Qatar. Very few Gazans have managed to leave the enclave through the Egyptian border. Mu'taz Azaiza and Plastia Al-Aqad are among them. Before October 7th, these 2 young Gazans were active social media users who became war reporters. Within weeks, they gained millions of followers on their Instagram accounts.
It's me, Mu'taz again.
Many other influencers experienced a similar shift. Bisan Aoude, who is still in Gaza, now chronicles the horrors experienced by Gazans and is a highly followed source on the ground.
I'm still alive, but I don't know if I'm surviving this night.
Since October 7th, many Western journalists and media outlets have signed petitions demanding the Israeli authorities to allow them access to the Gaza Strip. Today, the only way to enter is to embed with the Israeli army, which was the case of France 24's envoys.
We're at Salahuddin Boulevard, as you can see behind me.
CNN's Clarissa Ward was the only Western journalist who managed to enter Gaza for a few hours through the Emirati authorities. The Israeli army, which we contacted several times, refused to comment on the ban imposed on foreign journalists to enter Gaza. For Clarissa Ward, the reasons behind the ban are not just about security.
The other consideration is what the effect would be of having many journalists on the ground. Would that impact the public narrative? I think they feel quite clearly that it would. And if you look at the response in Israeli media to our report that came out from Gaza, it was clear from those from some of the voices that you heard in Israeli media that that was a real consideration, that there was an understanding that if you had a lot of international journalists on the ground inside Gaza, that that would create, in the words of one analyst, a real headache for Israel.
Several NGOs, like Reporters Without Borders, are closely monitoring the situation in Gaza. They have been fighting for months to defend journalists' rights. Today, they are given an update by their local staff member, who has been evacuated to Qatar.
We continue to document what's happening. We regularly pass on the information to the ICC. We hope that international justice will help us fight the impunity of crimes against journalists.
Since January, the International Criminal Court has included crimes against journalists in its investigation on the Palestinian territories. As for the United Nations, the attack and killing of journalists constitute war crimes.